Certainly. Certainly.
And I guess my question to you is, what is the role of Egypt and the culture of Egypt in the human evolution? Where do we see that coming from?
Well, okay, one of the curiosities, and mostly with anything about Egypt, everything's debatable, but it's also completely fascinating because we don't really know where to put it in this, the space-time continuum. However, it seems that Egypt started fully evolved and deteriorated, that they were at their peak at the onset. Right?
Yeah.
And if you look around with a critical eye anywhere in Egypt, you'll see that the largest stones are the deepest, which means in archaeology everything's in layers. The most recent thing is on the top. And so you'll see old large stones, medium stones, and these tiny stones. And so, it's a very curious thing. I think they had a tremendous wisdom. Now, if we've had several world floods and everything was wiped out, those pyramids were well constructed. It's a pretty stable thing. Even if there was an earthquake, the pyramid is a solid mass. And so it's not going to break apart.
And evidence around the Sphinx. Yeah, and I was just going to say, and evidence around the Sphinx that has survived water damage over the years.
Absolutely. So it's yes. Anyway, so they were built to endure many different crises on the planet, weather, climatological, all this. And anyway, so there's something about them that was designed to stay, and they were more sophisticated than anything else we've ever had. Now, if the power grid went down right now, in the winter in Canada, for example, we wouldn't be able to stay in our homes. We would have to go walk around and start over again. And even though we're very clever and we can use technology and all of that, the power grid goes down, our computers go down, right? And then it's just us and our little hunting knife, if you will, right? And so we're starting over again. So it could be that after the flood, that some very clever people that have lost their instrumentation would start putting stone circles around and measuring the different, looking for Sirius, looking for Orion, looking for the pole star, and putting markers out and starting over again. I think that we've probably been wiped out and then rebuilt and wiped out and rebuilt. But there's something about the Egyptian culture that came in its full glory at the beginning.
And it's not the only culture in the world to talk about this being the, I think it's the Mayan culture that refers to this being, I think, or maybe it's the Hopi culture, sorry, that refers to this being the fourth or the fifth or the sixth world, essentially like the Vedic scripts in India, suggesting that, again, as you said, this is not the first time we've been through this. This, more than likely, this particular species has gone through this run and started over more than once. And again, there's obviously the relationship and assertion from a lot of people that the reason why Egyptian culture started fully evolved was because it ultimately started from somewhere else outside of this planet. Where do you stand on that?
Well, again, we can't prove it, but we've had all the books have been destroyed. The Vatican did a really good job of burning the Library of Alexandria 3 times and all of that.
Doesn't that just kill?
The Vedic texts, though, have survived and they're ridiculed. But they talk about Vayamas, flying ships, and all of these cultures talk about blue beings that and if you look at Abydos, you'll see the frescoes have got red-skinned beings, yellow-skinned beings, and blue-skinned beings. Well, maybe they don't all come from the same place. Krishna and all of, blue skin. So, and the other thing is that they're not shy to say that we're connected to extraterrestrials and that we channel other beings and, ascended masters would have, popped in and out and walked among us. Well, Catholicism talks about angels. And so, but that's fashionable, but, the ascended masters are not, and then my God's better than your God, and so if you don't believe our dogma, we're going to kill you and all of that. And so everything's been quite mushed around and mixed up, and the ancient texts have notoriously been mistranslated in terms of looking at things through a patriarchal lens again, and the Father God with a lightning bolt that's going to strike you down. We've changed the cultural myth, and that's why we can't understand, how it all started and how we trace it back. But the fragments are there. And we have internet, and we have each other, and we have linguistics now that can assist us in being able to translate these things properly. And what you're going to find at the bottom of it all is that the truth is that it's written, these texts, the Nag Hammadi texts, which are found in Egypt in 1947, they're written in the voice of the sacred feminine. It's not a thunderbolt old guy in the sky that we have to have faith in. It's a mother goddess that co-creates with us, whose body is Mother Earth, who has faith in us, which is part of why a lot of the predictions, Nostradamus, that sort of thing, doesn't go beyond 2012, because we enter into a new system where thought is creative, which it already is, but that we are manifesting and operating in a whole different way. And it's not about having faith in something outside of ourselves. That's disempowering. It's about the empowerment of the human being from the inside. So what we need is a model for an empowered humanity. And that's what we're missing, because we've got these jokers running around Congress, and if you don't get caught, it's not wrong, and all the money's for me. And that's really, you know, putting us at a crisis point.
Well, there's no better way to finish than on that excellent soliloquy from somebody that's you know, not just talking subjectively, but has spent the time and the research and the work going around the world to educate herself so she can help educate us. And I couldn't be more pleased and honored to have had, like I said, somebody I believe is not just one of the foremost Egyptologists in the world, but somebody that's an absolute, incredible, articulate communicator that at these times right now is arguably as necessary as the knowledge itself. So for that, I really I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank you for your excellent work with the Pyramid Code. If you haven't seen that, you absolutely should. And again, the book is Angels and Archetypes, an Evolutionary Map of Feminine Consciousness. Can people still find that on Amazon?
No, it's out of print right now. I have the last of the run, so if somebody really wants it, it'll be republished at some point. But you can just email me, and we'll talk about how I can get you a copy.
Well, again, an absolute pleasure. We could go on for hours, but perhaps down the road and before your incredible trip in November to Egypt. Thanks for joining us today, and again, thanks so much for all your work. I guess we lost her.
No, I'm here.
Oh,
you
sorry.
cut out for a moment.
Oh, sorry, I cut out for a second. I was like, oh my God, we lost her. I just said thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
And this is an incredible woman, people. Again, if you haven't had the chance to listen to some interviews that are even more expansive, but again, watch the Pyramid Code, because she was able to touch on a lot of things here that she's able to go into in much more detail in that excellent piece of work that, again, takes a lot of the, preconceived notions about Egyptology, about the pyramids, about the culture, not only just disproves them in a way that's so, compelling that it's almost ridiculous, but actually offers really credible science around what the potential is around not only the origins behind Egyptian culture around the pyramids, but our culture. And that, of course, affects where we're going, because unless we know really where we came from, we're not going to be able to go in the right direction. And that's obviously crucial in these transformational times we're in. More after the break here on the One Network.
The exact end of the cycle of darkness is approaching. Each winter solstice before 2012, our sun comes into close alignment with the galactic center. This means we are beginning to feel the shift of energy already, even though the exact conjunction is December the 21st, 2012.
So all signs point to the interpretation that we are deep into the period of increasing darkness. What happens at the end of that downward trend is a turnabout. And I believe that that's where we are right now in history. The Mayan material for 2012 basically indicates this turnabout point, this point of maximized spiritual darkness. But then in the cycles of time, we turn the corner, and we have an opportunity to open up to the transformational energies that can sweep us into the next cycle. It has to do with the opportunity that we have to open up to the divine wisdom, to the transformational energies. But it always comes down to free will. Nothing is predetermined. It always comes down to a choice that we all have to close down in fear, succumb to fear, close down, become more limited in our consciousness, or open up to the blessing of the connection to the higher wisdom that is symbolized in the Maya tradition by the galactic center, the womb of the Great Mother, that which can transform and renew.
Wake up. We have it. We got it. Just know that we have it. And it works.